Hello and welcome to this video brought to you by Printfest Ulverston, and it's an instructional video for simple monoprinting using stencils. My name's Esther Benson and I'm going to show you how to do this. Please feel free to pause this video during a lesson and so your students can just follow what I'm doing. Monoprinting means one print, mono meaning one, and it's a one-off print. You can't repeat it, you can't get the same print more than once. Unlike using something like a stamp or a piece of lino where you could repeat the print and get a series of the same print. Every print you make with monoprinting will be a one-off. First of all, you will need some equipment to do this, but it's quite basic equipment and so it's quite a simple and easy technique. You will need some rollers. I quite like these kind of soft rollers for this technique, but any printing roller is fine. You will need some block printing ink is the ink that you need for this, something like this one, and ideally a red, a yellow and a blue so that you can mix any colour that you like, and on top of that, if you can, a black and a white are handy too. You might want a roller tray or two, like this one, just to keep rollers in or to roll your ink out in. You'll need some paper to print on, and also some paper stencils. It's quite chilly here today, so it made me think of snowflakes, and so I've made some snowflake shapes. You could make paper stencils of any shape whatsoever to fit a theme or a project that you're doing at the moment. So it could be leaves, it could be still life objects like teapots, it could be anything. So paper stencils cut out and ready to go. And for afterwards, when you finish, to clean up, a green scourer is really handy, plus a cloth, and this is just a recycled white cut up white polo shirt. They are really good because they've got a little bit of texture to them, so they make really good cloths for cleaning up after printmaking. Okay, so also, you need a surface to work on. I've got on my desk here a piece of Perspex and I'm going to roll my ink straight out onto the Perspex. You could roll your ink out into the roller tray and use that. The problem with that is that you've got a limited surface area, it's quite small, so you're going to be working on quite small scale prints if you do that. Any other surface that is smooth and is completely flat will work fine for this. The inks are water-based, and I am an art teacher, and in my school I put the inks straight onto the desks because it wipes off completely and really easily as well, and I'll show you how to do that at the end. Okay, the first thing you're going to need to do is prepare your ink ready for printing. And so you'll need a roller and to decide what colour you would like to work with. I'm going to go for a light blue. So I'm going to put some blue onto my Perspex and a bit of white. A tiny spot of yellow. Now you don't need a lot of ink. I would say I am putting out blobs of ink that are about the size, I've got 3 blobs of ink that are about the size of 2 peas. So quite small amounts of ink, just like that kind of area, not too much, especially if you're going to print onto A4 paper. This is about the right size. You then want to roll out your ink to cover a surface area that's no bigger than the piece of paper you're going to print onto. So I'm aiming to cover as an A4 sized area on my piece of Perspex. The way I do this is I start to roll it and spread the ink, and then I get my piece of paper that I'm going to print onto and I just hold it there and check I'm not going bigger, and I can spread it a little bit further. Now you want the ink to be quite thick, so actually I'm thinking I possibly could do with a little bit more, and I'm just going to put a bit more blue into there and a little squidge more white. But it's easier to add the ink than it is to take it away. If you find you've got far too much ink on the table, just lay over a piece of newspaper and blot it to take it away. Don't start getting a wet cloth involved. Okay, so I've rolled it out. It's still got some texture to it. My roller's got a little bit of bumpiness and the ink on the table is bumpy, and I can see that there is some thickness to the ink. And for this particular technique, that's going to be important. I'm just going to double check I've not rolled it out too much. That looks about perfect. And now I'm going to add on my stencils. So I'm going to pop one here. Now I made these using cartridge paper. Using a cartridge paper or a card would be ideal, be better than a thinner paper, because the thinner, like a printer paper, would just rip. I'm only going to do 3 and you'll see why in just a second. My first print I'm going to take onto white paper. So this is print number 1. You're going to do multiple prints using this ink without re-rollering any ink. I'll pop my paper down on top of the stencils and I'm going to rub. I'm going to rub into around all of the shapes, pressing down where I know there's little gaps. I can actually see through this paper to my stencils and feel through it, picking up as much ink as possible. When I lift that up, you can see that the shapes have been left white. Okay, and now I'm going to take these stencils off and move them. The first print I call the boring print. We might do something with that later. The next print's where it really starts to get exciting. So you can lift up your piece of paper, your stencil, and you'll find it's got ink on the back. Now we can use that to print with. That will transfer onto our piece of paper. So I'm going to turn my stencil over so the ink is facing up. I'm going to do that with all 3 stencils. You can put them to overlap the other shapes. You'll be able to see when you lift them up, you can see the outline of where they were on the ink. I'm going to take another piece of white paper. I haven't applied any more ink. I'm just going to apply pressure to this, see what happens. Again, I'm going to apply pressure around the stencils. If you've got a clean roller, you can use a clean roller to apply pressure. When you lift that one up, I've got double the amount of shapes. I've got the imprint that was left by the first stencil being there, and then I've got the ink has come off the back of the paper stencils as well. The final step you can take is you can remove all of the stencils from the ink And what you're left with, you'll be able to see lots of patterns within the ink. And so you can take a final, what we call a ghost print. And this is always worth doing. So I'm going to take another piece of paper, this time blue. Oh, and that's really faint, but there is a slight print there. And that's printed really nicely onto the black. So really what you're using this for is to experiment with pattern and with colour and with texture, and what the work that you will produce will be quite abstract, but will be fun and quite effective. Okay, for cleaning up, the best thing is to take your rollers to the sink and clean them there. But to clean your desks, the best thing I think is to bring a container of water, you and your scourer and a cloth. You want a little bit of water in your scourer, but you want your cloth to be damp. The first thing you do is with your scourer, using a circular motion, loosen the ink. Then with your damp cloth, open it out flat, and in one swipe you should be able to remove the ink from the desk.